When you play the Game of Thrones, you
subscribe and like,
or you die. There is no middle ground.
Alright, hello YouTube, and welcome to the Grease Goblins YouTube channel. And first of all, I wanted to say Merry Christmas to all of you guys, or if you don't celebrate that, Happy Holidays for whatever you do celebrate. And I hope you guys have a good one with your families and stuff, and stay safe. And yeah, so getting into this video, we are doing the top 10 like character arcs. So this is going to be for like their character development, where they go as a character, and kind of their journey as well. Before we get into that though, if you guys like to see more of this type of content from me, subscribe, like, and comment for more of those type of videos. Also, let me know what you guys want to see for top 10s, as well as just ranking videos in general. And let's get into this one. So honorable mentions, I have Davos and Sansa. I felt really bad having Davos out of the top 10 because I think he does have a really good character arc from, being someone that was, a smuggler to, coming all the way to Stannis' Hand of the King and all the things he does with Stannis. And it's one of my favorite stories, throughout A Song of Ice and Fire is the Stannis and Davos kind of back and forth. I did feel a little bad not having him on this list, but there's just so many characters that are just perfectly written to where they're so compelling and where they go, and George is really great at that. It's his biggest strength is conversations that characters have, as well as character growth and development. Another honorable mention that I had said before, Sansa. I feel like she's getting there, right? Where she's kind of been this character where she's kind of like Daenerys early on, where she's kind of feels like this helpless girl who doesn't have a lot of confidence, who is kind of just being controlled at this point, like Dany was with Viserys. But we haven't really seen Sansa rise up yet. She's starting to play the game a little bit, but she definitely hasn't hit that point where she's starting to take control of her, life and stuff like that. So that's why I still have her down here just a little bit. I'd already pretty much recorded this entire video, but I did want to say, I do want to put Brienne in the honorable mentions. She could probably even be on this list for some people. I think she has a really good story as well. And being that, strong character where we don't see really any warriors that are female, and for her to be one of the best in A Song of Ice and Fire is crazy, as well as the journey she goes on from, being with Renly to then Catelyn, and her whole mission and how she's duty bound. Really well written character as well. So yeah, I wanted to throw her in there after I, fully recorded this video. Number 10, I have the Hound. I think the Hound is a really good character because we see it like his moral dilemmas. We see how he's this big brute of a man who tries to personify that he is, a big dude. He doesn't really care about anything. As we learn to, look at this character, we see that he has this struggle within him, that he kind of has a insecurity, about his face and stuff like that, and himself personally, as well as he's in that constant conflict of being at war with himself, which I think is really resolved well. Well, seeing that he is probably the Gravedigger. I've done a Hound video if you guys want to have more backstory to that, but I think he's found peace, hopefully, as a character. And I think it'd be really cool if he's not actually brought back into the story and that he's just given a happy ending, which probably won't happen. But I wanted to put the Hound at number 10. Number 9, Robert Baratheon. He's not in the main story for that long, but if we look at him as a character, he's a very tragic character. He's a character that goes from being a, big, leader, warrior, and someone that really, and I feel like I look at Robert Baratheon and I think he loved the idea of Lyanna more than he loved Lyanna. But you see how that love, or that image that he had in his mind, kind of drove him as a character. After the war, even after Lyanna dies, he's still in love with her, and he can't really find any peace within any of that. And it, makes him overlook his own children, or, well, they're not really his children, but he thinks they are. Seeing the obvious things going on underneath his nose with Jaime and Cersei, he's a perfectly tragically written character that it's just hard to, watch and look at as became, someone who was, really muscular, a big dude, become really kind of an oaf, and someone that was a fool, really, in the end. And I think he's just a really good character. Going on to number 8, we have Samwell Tarly. I think he has one of the better arcs within the entire books. That's why he's on this list. he goes from someone being very cowardice and being afraid of almost everything to being a character that kills an other. He, is a major force within being on the, the wall and stuff like that, and showing that he, does have some courage, going off to be a maester. He's this character that we kind of learn to respect, and we see how much he's grown as a character from the start of the story to where we are now in the current, story. And I just really love Samwell. I think he's one of the better characters, because we have so many characters in this story that are very, sure of themselves, very confident, very, big into, being able to be a swordsman or smart or this. And Samwell's this character that he doesn't know who he is. And he finds eventually his way with the help of, Jon and others. And that's why we love Samwell. And on to number 7. So number 7 might be controversial. I have Cersei at number 7. I think Cersei is, again, another very tragic character. We see, we start with this idea that she's very much a big villain, and she definitely stays a villain throughout the entire books. But what I think is really awesome is that George gives us her point of view, which shows so much more of her point of view and why she is trying to save her children and stuff, and what motivates her as a character. And I think her, her journey of trying to stop this prophecy and all that goes along with that makes her story arc and character very deep and complex when it comes to, yes, she is stupid, but we see why she's doing these stupid plays and maneuvers within a feast for, crows and stuff like that. Number 6, we have Arya. Now, Arya is a fantastic character because from the beginning of the story, we see that she's being trained to be something else, being like her sister Sansa, being a lady. And Arya is constantly being told that that's what she should be. And we see Arya constantly, rejecting those values and saying that's not really her as a character. She is somebody that is very much a tomboy. She is someone that prefers to do more, generally manly things, someone like a Brienne. Now, Arya also grows as a character as she learns kind of that Westeros is not as an innocent place, and she learns this just in a different manner than Sansa. Sansa sees, how, knights, there's not really any chivalry, really. All those tales were never really true. Arya kind of already believed that. Arya just sees what war does. She sees the effects of, the War of the Five Kings, and all this at a personal level. And we see a lot of her friends die, a lot of her companions. And I think Arya going to the Faceless Men, we see her also, dealing with this moral dilemma of, okay, so should I be killing people that don't necessarily deserve it while other people get to walk free that definitely do deserve it? And I think it's why her story is so much more intriguing in the books than it is the show, because in the show, I feel like they didn't know where to go with the character. I think in the show, they just had her kind of sit around for a while and do nothing almost. So that is why I have Arya here at number 6. Number 5, I have Jon. Now, Jon definitely could be placed higher on this list, but I felt like the 4 above him really deserved to be there. But Jon, we go from as being this character that he feels unwanted, really not part of a family. And we see like some of those lines where he goes to Sam, he doesn't want to father a bastard. He doesn't really want a family because he doesn't want anyone really to feel like how he has. And we see him kind of grow into someone that, takes on a lot of responsibility at the watch or at the wall. And we see him grow as a character, take that leadership. And we see kind of this idea that, again, was with Ned. Ned in King's Landing, moral dilemmas, right? He always took the higher ground. He tried to be a morally good character. Jon tries to do the same things, and it's kind of a, reason that leads to his death, as well as him just being young and, not understanding how to, lead men to where they will still like you enough to not kill you. Also, it doesn't really matter who you think Jon's parents are. The whole thing coming to a close where, say he's Ned and Ashara's, kid, or he's, Rhaegar and Lyanna's, coming full circle that this whole time, really, he's either been the heir to Winterfell or the heir to the Iron Throne. I think it's going to be really come full circle, and I think George is going to do a really good job showing that, and I think Jon's character arc in general, as we see him also grow in other areas, like kind of understanding that, you know, everybody, you know, doesn't live in a castle like he did. We see as early in the first book that he kind of starts to realize, okay, you know, everybody's not like him. You know, he had certain benefits at Winterfell. I think it just makes for a really compelling character and a compelling story as well. Number 4, I have Theon. So Theon's somebody that is on the hero's side, but he's not a likable character. He's not made out to be a likable character. He's someone that is very much a horny bastard, for one thing. 2, someone that's very full of himself and confident in his own abilities. I would even say cocky. He betrays Robb, and he's someone that we kind of learn to hate, you know, because we even think he kills Bran and Rickon for a while, and, you know, he doesn't. But it's one of those things where you see all this happen, and then you go to, you know, from Theon, he basically gets tortured and stuff, and we don't even know that Reek is Theon starting out with those chapters, and we see all this horrible things that have been done to Theon, and we start to sympathize and feel bad for him as a character. And seeing him come full circle, which I hopefully, you know, is expanded upon, you know, in the next book, is Theon returning to being, you know, a confident character in himself, and, you know, finding out who he really is between, you know, is that a Stark, a Greyjoy, a mix in between. I think it's going to be a really, you know, good plot line within Winds, and hopefully we get to spend a little bit more time with him. Hopefully he doesn't die. Number 3, Dany. Okay, I usually get a lot of hate for Dany. Okay, people tend to think I hate Dany. I do not hate Dany. She has a good story. I just personally don't relate to her story, and I don't like her story as a lot of other stories, but that's just me. Like, she has a good story. So I wanted to say that before I get into number 3, why Dany is here, because a lot of people seem to think I hate her. I get it in the comments all the time, but yeah, no, she's definitely a good character. But Dany goes from this character that is very kind of being controlled, manipulated. She just doesn't have any power really at all. She's very innocent, and we see her kind of start to come into her own as she tries to come into her own as a Khaleesi, you know, getting rid of, you know, her brother more or less, who was trying to control her and treated her like garbage. We see her even after this, you know, after Khal Drogo dies, her take leadership, making decisions for other people, and really becoming a, you know, a really cool character in general, and becoming a strong woman that is, you know, able to do a lot, which in a very male-dominated society, which, you know, is A Song of Ice and Fire, she becomes one of the most powerful women, if not the most powerful woman at this point of the story. You know, we see her, you know, conquer, and using her smart ability to, you know, conquer some of these cities and stuff like that. So Dany, I definitely believe, deserved to be at least in the top 3. Let me know what you guys think about that. And number 2 and number 1, I think you can go either way with. I think they both deserve to be in the top 2. But number 2 is going to be Tyrion. Tyrion definitely is better in the books than he is the show, for one big plot point that they completely excluded from the show, which I don't really know why they did that: Tysha. So if you don't know, and you're really only watched mainly the show, Tyrion had a love interest when he was younger, which is kind of hinted at in the show a little bit, but they don't go into detail with it. But more or less, Tyrion marries a woman, and, you know, Jaime, you know, says that this was a whore that he hired. And in reality, it actually wasn't. You know, Tywin told him to say that. And this is something that Jaime does eventually tell Tyrion, and it drives Tyrion just nuts. We see this in the next book that he is in Dance with Dragons, where he is deeply hurt by this. And Tyrion and Jaime's relationship within the books is completely fractured at this point. There's no, like, when they leave in the show, it's like Jaime's like, okay, yeah, he's a little angry because Tyrion killed Tywin, but they still, like, can talk and be civil and stuff like that. That's not really at all what's happening in the books. And not only that, you see Tyrion as a character where he's constantly discriminated against because, you know, of being, you know, a dwarf or an imp, as he is called. And we see him you know, outsmart a lot of people and use his wits, and we see the betrayal of his own family against him. We see the betray of his lover at this point, and it's a really good story and a really good and intriguing character that is Tyrion. But I do have him at number 2, and I think you could make him number 1. So number 1, I have Jaime Lannister, the Kingslayer himself. I feel like this one's pretty self-explanatory. I still will never forgive the show for butchering his character. But Jaime is someone that we all hate at the beginning, or at least we dislike. They're not a likable character, or he's not a likable character at the beginning of the story. And he goes from being that to, I would say, one of the fan favorite characters of the entire books, based upon looking at how all these characters treat Jaime as though he is just somebody that is a terrible human being for killing the Mad King when the Mad King was doing terrible atrocities and was trying to burn the entire city. And Jaime just feels like even if he tells this, people won't believe him, or, you know, he was already being judged before he even got a chance to defend himself. And we see how that impacts his decision making later on in his life and in the story as well. And we also see him kind of humbled by losing his hand, which was almost everything to Jaime at that point. We see him start to be a better character and take responsibility for things and look at the world in a better light. And I just think Jaime is a fantastically written character, and I think probably is the best written character of the entire series, or, you know, within A Song of Ice and Fire. But with that being said, let me know if there's some characters I forgot on here that you would like, you know, to be on this list. Let me know what your guys' lists are, and I will see you guys all in the next video.
If you think this has a happy ending, you haven't been paying attention.